Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Hello, welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Wednesday, July 30th. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far today. This is episode 585 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Of course, appreciate all of those tuning in on all the different audio podcast platforms. And today we have another set of New York Jets player previews. You know the drill. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we take a look at two different players, one on the offensive side of the football and the other on the defensive side of the football. And today we're going to take a look at rookie wide receiver Arian Smith and newly signed in the offseason Byron Cowart, defensive tackle for this New York Jets team on the defensive side of the football here a little bit later on in the podcast. We'll start today, as we always do, on the 2025 New York Jets player previews on the offensive side of the football, and that is looking at the speedster Arian Smith, who the New York Jets drafted in the 4th round, 110th overall out of Georgia. Arian Smith is 23 years old. He'll be 24 in October, so a little bit on the older end there from a prospect-wise. 6 foot, 179 pounds, coming out of Georgia. Arian Smith, out of this entire draft class and really this entire offseason for the New York Jets, was one of the more controversial and more questionable moves that the Jets made this offseason, at least on paper. The way you project Arian Smith, what Arian Smith did in college, you have a lot of questions. You have a lot of doubts. You have certainly a lot of concerns. There is definitely a few positives, but from where they took Arian Smith and where many expected him to fall in the draft, it felt at the time like a reach. It felt at the time like a very questionable pick, and still is, really, until he takes the field and we see what he can do on Sundays, and more importantly, what this coaching staff can do from a perspective of coaching him up and making him become a better all-around wide receiver. This was a guy that many draft experts, many draft analysts projected on their big boards not to go in the 5th round, not to go in the 6th round. A lot of people saw this guy as a possible undrafted free agent who the New York Jets selected in the 4th round. And when that happens, when that's the projection, when that's the consensus, it's going to raise some eyebrows. And there are certainly parts of Arian Smith's games that get you excited. And I think we should start with the positives, and then we'll get into really some of the concerns, what he did in college, and then, of course, project and really try to figure out what he can do for this team in his rookie year, and even looking at the bigger picture, what he can do beyond his rookie year, because like every rookie, he's going to have his growing pains. And for a guy that was selected on day number 3, you don't expect him to come in right away, especially a player that has so much to work on like him, come in right away and make this huge impact for this Jets team in 2025. But what pops off the charts and what really excited the New York Jets, especially in their pre-draft visit with him, their meeting with him, is the athleticism, right? This is a former track star. The athleticism's off the charts. We'll read you just some numbers here. The speed is really what pops off the charts. the track speed, the vertical speed, his ability to blow by anybody, blow by any corner, get deep, get open that way. That's his biggest strength. That's one of his biggest positives. He ran a 4.36 40-yard dash that ranked him 5th among wide receivers in this combine, and that's 91st percentile all time. A blazing 40-yard dash. There's some other areas as well to his game that show off the athleticism, not just the speed, but he had a 38-inch vertical, which was 78th percentile among wide receivers. A 127-inch broad jump, 83rd percentile among wide receiver. A 6.82 three-cone, 74th percentile among wide receivers. And in a 9.20 overall, encapsulating everything, he had a 9.20 RAS score, which was best among relative athletic score, the best among all of the New York Jets draft picks in this year's class. So the athleticism pops off the charts. But now you get to the question marks, and you look at his numbers this past season, definitely his best year in his collegiate career. 48 receptions, 78 targets, 817 yards, 17 yards per reception, 4 touchdowns. He led the team in yards. But then you get to some of the issues, right? The counting numbers, even with that being a career year, even with that being his most productive season, 48 receptions, 817 yards, even for a day 3 wide receiver, doesn't give you much, doesn't really make you go crazy, doesn't really pop off the page when looking at those numbers. Even though he led Georgia in yards, he suffered a ton of drops and a lot of big drops. He had 10 drops last season, which was the most among the Power 4 conferences, and he was tied for 3rd most in all of college football. On those 75 targets, the 10 drops calculated to a 13.3% drop rate, which was near inside the top 10 highest drop rates in all of college football. On top of that, he caught just 2 of 9 contested targets, which was a 22.2% contested catch rate, the 7th worst in college football. A 58.8 run block grade, which this regime, this coaching staff seems to value run blocking from their wide receivers. And he had 5 penalties. So athleticism there, speed's there, but the drops were an issue. Contested catch isn't too surprising, considering he's only 6 foot 179. He's not this big 6'5", 6'6" receiver that's going to go up and make 50-50 balls, 80-20, 70-30 balls. But still, 22.2% is extremely low. And when you watch him on tape and you just watch back and even just do more research on him, route running is not necessarily a strength of his either. So drops, contested catches, route running, the drops not the best hands, and he struggles against physical coverage. He struggles against press coverage. He struggles against that physical man coverage. And you're going to see a lot of that in the NFL. And that's a lot of ways these teams are going to try and take him out of games. So this is really a guy here in Arian Smith. Route tree needs a lot of work. And I'll give you a number here in a second on just to kind of show you how much work he does need. The drops need to be cleaned up. The route running needs to be better. The contested catches were extremely low. And you talk about the route running, he's primarily a vertical and a screen threat right now. That really is what he was used in college. And your occasional end-around gadget guy. And that feels like that might be projecting what his role is rookie year. A vertical threat with the possibility of being that end-around gadget guy with speed, get the ball in his hand, pick up a chunk play on an end-around, some of those gadget trickery plays. But last year, in passes with 0 to 9 air yards, he had 6 receptions, 41 yards. 10 to 19 air yards, 12 receptions, 240 yards. So in total, from passes that were thrown from 0 to 19 air yards, 18 receptions, just 281 yards. That's on average 1.3 receptions and 20 yards per game. That's about 1 catch per game in between 0 to 19 yards, which basically tells you short to intermediate, not much of a threat. It's mainly the vertical, the speed. And he also oftentimes was used in the gadget plays and those screens. Everything else, though, he didn't provide much. He didn't provide much across the middle, intermediate, 10, 15 yards. He didn't provide much even on slants, 5 to 6 yards, those quick routes, curls, flats. He didn't do much of that. It was vertical and your gadget plays. So that, too, you have a lot of work on with Arian Smith. Now, you look at his numbers as a whole in his career. 47 games played total in Georgia, 68 receptions, 1,356 yards, 19.9 yards per reception, 10 touchdowns. Look, almost having 20 yards per reception. He was at 19.9. That's impressive. And I think that shows you the speed and shows you the vertical threat. He can be a guy that can make big plays. He could be a guy downfield that breaks loose and just takes over with his speed. But there is a lot to work on. And I didn't want to sound too negative with this player preview, but you also have to throw in the fact, too, with Arian Smith. While he was at Georgia for a very long time, right, dating all the way back to COVID, this was a guy that dealt with a lot of injuries. He didn't play as much as you'd think he did. This is a guy that has an injury history, which also you can kind of throw into the concerns a bit as well. He had a fractured wrist. He had a torn meniscus. He had a broken fibula. He had a high ankle sprain. Those injuries led to 3 total surgeries. He has an injury history, and any prospect that has an injury history always kind of catches your eye as a little bit of a concern. And I'm not sitting here and saying Arian Smith's going to be terrible and he has no chance. And I don't want to come across that I'm saying that. I want him to do well. I hope Arian Smith's great. I hope he finds a role in this team, but there is a long way to go. He's got a lot to work on. Route running, catching, route tree, intermediate routes. All of that kind of falls under the same umbrella. Physical press corners. He struggles against them. You're going to see a lot of that in the NFL. We know what he can do vertical. We know the speed. That's all there. That's great. If he can add the other tools and they can coach him up, you can have a pretty good receiver here, pretty productive player. But if those other things don't fall in line, that's where you're really just looking at a vertical gadget guy, really. And I think that's what you should expect in his rookie year because it's going to take time. He's not going to go out there rookie year and all of a sudden be the best route runner, all of a sudden be vastly improved with his hands, all of a sudden be a threat from an intermediate route perspective. All of a sudden, he's going to dominate physical press corners. No, that's not going to happen. And I think that's what rookie year, you bring him in certain packages. He's going to be a certain package type of player where you need a big chunk play. He's in. You're going to run your verticals, run downfield, try and beat you with his speed over top. And that's what he's going to be used. And as your end-around gadget player. Nothing more, nothing less. That's what I think you expect out of Arian Smith in year one. And then the next step is improving all those other aspects of his game. So that's Arian Smith, rookie wide receiver out of Georgia. Moving on now to a free agent acquisition, so a new face as well. Byron Cowart, entering year 7 at 29 years old, 6'3", 300 pounds, was a 2019 fifth-round pick, 159th overall by the New England Patriots, went to Maryland, signed a one-year contract with the Jets, $1.3 million deal. And right now, as we currently sit in late July at the time of this recording, and you even go back to the spring, there's a real good chance that Byron Cowart, who throughout his entire career has just been a rotational depth, bounced around with a couple different teams, defensive tackle, has a real opportunity here with the Jets to start next to Quinnen Williams as the DT2 spot is open. And Cowart is right in the heat of that competition right now and feels like the front runner and is emerging as the front runner for when this team takes on the Pittsburgh Steelers week 1 Cowart is going to be out there lined up against Quinnen Williams. And you look at Cowart, he's had a very interesting career, right? I mentioned 2019 draft pick from New England, spent the first 3 years of his career with New England. Now, he played in 2019 and 2020. He did not play at all in 2021. That was it. That was it for his Patriots tenure, those 3 years. Fast forward 2022, he spent that season with the Colts, played in all 17 games. 2023 was a very crazy year. He did not see the field at all. From March through May of 2023, he was with the Chiefs. He was then released, picked up by the Texans in May, spent training camp with the Texans, was then cut, and it was shortly after early September of the 2023 season, picked up by the Dolphins and spent the year on the practice squad. So 2023, Chiefs, Texans, Dolphins did not see any playing time. It was all off-season practice squad. And then fast forward to last year, ends up in Chicago and has his best season of his career. And what's interesting about Byron Cowart, and one of the reasons I think to keep an eye on him as a guy that's going to play a role for this team and potentially start for this team, is the connection he has to the new defensive line coach for the New York Jets. And that's Eric Washington, who comes over from Chicago as the defensive coordinator last year. And Byron Cowart, playing under him, had his best season. So that connection right there kind of throws a little bit more context into the possibility of Cowart emerging and becoming a starter and playing a key role for this team alongside Quinnen Williams this season. And you look at his numbers last year, 15 games played, 7 of those were starts. He had 156 pass rush snaps, 178 run defense snaps, total played 335 total snaps. That's about 22 snaps per game, 35% of the defensive snaps. So very low rotational role. 68.6% of his snaps came over lined up at the guard. 20.6% came at nose tackle. He had 26 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, 12 pressures, 4 quarterback hits, 7 QB hurries, and 17 run stops. His sacks, pressures, and run stops were all career highs. So it was, by a pretty wide margin, a career year in many areas. And he was positive in both run defense and as a pass rusher. And I think that's what gives you some intrigue for Cowart here. Again, was he elite? No, but he did some good things against the run. He was steady against the run, and he was steady against the pass. He had his most pressures he's had in a year, and he also registered the most sacks he's had in his career in a single season. And some other numbers that I wanted to throw out here, just to kind of show the balance in some of the pass rushing success and some of the run defense success. He had an 8% run stop rate, which was 23rd among 116 interior defensive linemen. Well above average, inside the top 25. And then he had a 7.7% pressure rate, which was 50th among 116 interior defensive linemen. So a little bit lower, but still comfortably above average for a guy who played 35% of the defensive snaps, only about 22 snaps per game in that rotational role. And when you look at the rest of this defensive line room, right, you have the likes of Derek Nottie, Jay Tufele, and in future episodes, we'll break down many other guys in this defensive line on these player preview series, even Leonard Taylor. Cowart seems to be right now the favorite. And when you look at the season he had last year, he has put himself in a position now, reunited with Eric Washington, the defensive coordinator for Chicago last season, to potentially become a starter for this team. And next to Quinnen Williams, you have hopefully optimism that he can build off of what he did last year. The Jets desperately need better play next to Quinnen. They desperately need more consistent play next to Quinnen Williams. Last year was a complete disaster with the likes of Solomon Thomas and Javon Kinlaw. Just awful. Giving you nothing, no production whatsoever. Dumb penalty after dumb penalty. Nothing against the run. Nothing from a pass rushing perspective. You need Cowart or any of these guys, but specifically in this case, Cowart, since this is his player preview, to emerge and be significantly better than that and play at just an above average level, which is where he was last year. If he gives you what he did if he has the type of season he had last year and stretched out across a bigger role as a starter, that's a massive upgrade over what the Jets were dealing with last season alongside Quinnen Williams, which was completely brutal and completely terrible by Joe Douglas to what he did to that offensive line. Now, before we close things out, just career numbers from Byron Cowart. 51 career games, 21 starts, 67 tackles, 3.5 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, 25 pressures, 7 quarterback hits, 17 QB hurries, and 38 career run stops. The Jets signed him 1-year deal, $1.3 million. You hope this can be looked back on as a bargain at the end of this season and somebody who can slot in next to Quinnen Williams potentially as the starter, win that job, and play a role for this Jets team, a productive role for this Jets team. You know, he's not going to go out there and have 10 sacks, but can he go out there, start next to Quinnen, be steady against the run, be steady against the pass, and then you have your other defensive linemen, Nadi, Jay Tufele, rotate in late down situations. If that's the case. For 1 year, $1.3 million, you take that. So that's a player preview. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. What are your thoughts on Arian Smith entering the 2025 season, his rookie season, and your thoughts on Byron Cowart, the newly signed free agent defensive tackle? Any other Jets takes you got, let me know what you think in the comments section down below. Next player preview, as you know, will be Friday, so stay tuned for that. And, of course, between now and then, we will have a ton more content here on the podcast. So appreciate your support so much. And until next time, JETS, 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 Jets.